Hello. Thank you all again so much for coming out to the Vapa Center's Open Studios Artists Talk. My name is Shalise Meikle. My pronouns are she, they. I'm very excited to introduce these panelists with you. Uh, you'll be introducing yourself. If you could please state your first and last name, your pronouns, and then like your primary medium. They're like what you do, like photographer, painter, things like that.
I'm Karine Olarte. My pronouns are she, they, and I'm a photographer.
Hey, I'm Oksana. I'm a creative portrait photographer, and my pronouns are she, they.
Hi, everybody. My name is Jordan T. Robinson. I am mostly a curator, but also an illustrator, and my pronouns are he, they.
Thank you all so much. I normally start this question. I normally start the panelists off with, "What's your favorite color?" So, with that, because I know some of us don't always use color, I'm going to offer up like two suggestions so you can tell everybody what your favorite color is and or what your favorite light source is. Like because we have some photographers on the board on the panel. Um, yeah, like 5 p.m. after it rains or something. Or like you have like a specific wattage bulb that you like to work with. I don't know. Yeah. Favorite light source and your favorite color.
I like using a spotlight setup mainly because it's just such a bright light. You can do a lot with that spotlight setup. It can be that circle, it can be like a rectangle, and you can focus on specific parts of somebody's body. So if I want to shoot like an eye, I could just have the spotlight right on the eye. So there's just a lot of versatility in that one lighting setup.
Kind of like Morticia from Adam's Family.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Nice.
Exactly
Nice.
that.
Anna?
I love colors. I use colors a lot in my photography. I'm also doing watercolors. Colors are the best. I think I would say warm colors like pink, maybe purple too, like lavender. And in terms of photography, I like really smooth and makes people
I like blue.
Nice. Solid.
No, I'm just no,
Perfect.
but no, I like darker colors. Blue is kind of my go-to. I've recently, at least in fashion wear, because bear with me, I'm still experimenting, y'all. I'm realizing I think I look good in earth tones, and I'm liking reds a lot. So just kind of incorporating that in my clothing, but in my artwork, blue's kind of my go-to. Yeah.
All great answers. Thank you all so much for that. Um, I was working unless it was all people that work with light, and I asked what their favorite color was. And it was like, it's light. Like there's no one color. So I was like, okay, I gotta adjust this.
Yeah. Fair.
Yeah. Closer to the face. Hello. So, um, other than your career as an artist, what do you do? Is there another career that you are besides an artist? And like, what is your day to day life as an artist, and what is your day to day with your side career? If you have like a 9 to 5 or maybe like an extra part time job, what is that? What's your day to day look like?
Yeah, so I'm a full-time photographer, and I've been that for a couple of years now. Day to day is very different. The only consistency I have is that I don't work until 12 p.m. because I do not work in the morning. Like my brain just does not operate. So I spend the whole morning doing journaling, cleaning, all this other stuff, eating breakfast, and then 12 to 6 is my primarily work time, and it's either editing, talking with other clients, going to the networking events, so many other random things that just come up when you are running a business full time.
Feel that?
yeah. So I'm doing photography, but just part time for now. I work full time as an instructional assistant at school, so I'm basically teaching fourth, fifth, and sixth graders. It's a
Mm-hmm.
Montessori school. It's amazing. It's amazing. I
What
love
school?
it. And but at the same time, it's very exhausting, I must say. And burnout is my frequent guest in my life. And yeah,
Which school, if you don't mind sharing?
yeah, it's called Chantilly Montessori.
Oh.
It's
Oh.
I love the students are really independent. That's what Montessori taught. Freedom within limits, so they know their limits. They know they have freedom. It's
I'll, I
It,
have to commend you for teaching and being involved in education. Mom was an English teacher for like 25 years, from K through 5.
like
For me, my 9 to 5, I'm a presentation designer, so I help because the company I work for, between leadership and the IT staff, their primary form of communication is through PowerPoints. And there's actually a niche career of designers that design PowerPoints. So that's kind of my 9 to 5, and that pays me enough to like make time for the things that like feed my soul.
And what are some things that feed your soul?
Yeah, so earlier I had said I primarily identify as a curator, but I do mixed media artworks. Um, I recently curated an exhibition advocating for the trans community called Transparency in Greensboro. So that was my weekend last year. This year I sit on 3 art boards. So that's my current focus this year. And I am planning, I just got accepted to a new residency at the end of this year at Reconsidered Goods. Thank you. At Reconsidered Goods. And so in preparation of that, there's like 3 bodies of artwork that I want to set up and plan so I can just show the proposal and get ready to go. Again, a planner. Yeah.
Now planning, I'm not. Um, that's like my strong suit as an artist. Like I have moments. I'm like, oh, good job, and then I forget it.
I want to be
Uh,
like you when I grow up. And the anxiety will probably go all the way down when I figure that out.
you have, otherwise anxiety is critical.
Yeah.
You mentioned that your mom was an English teacher. Um, growing up, like, was art in the household? Was that something you like grew up in?
Oh, for sure.
Oh
So,
yeah.
so it's funny. I was thinking about on the way down here, like when I think about what I've been doing with my work, I want to honor both my parents. Mom and dad were very supportive in whatever me and my 2 brothers, the youngest of 2 brothers, whatever my brothers and I got into, they just supported us all the way through. Whether it was scouts, sports, wrestling, marching band, visual arts, um, like at 3 years old, I was playing the trumpet and like musical instruments. And so then dad got me a piano, so I would play on the piano. Right. And then I went to a magnet school in Greensboro called Moorhead Henry. They were focused on arts. Mom would always be crafty, so we would make arts and crafts all the time. I remember I was 3 years old, and we had built a house off Legos. And like for a good while, I just left it there just to admire it when I got home. And eventually, I was like, I think I can do that. And so I started building my own houses out of Legos. And by the time I was in high school, I was like, oh, you know, look at that. So dad got me Architects Digest. He got me in touch with Hardy Gant, with Gant Hardy's Architects when he was here. And that was part of my research, my graduation research project for high school. And so it's like they've always stood by our sides. Whatever I do, I want to make sure
They're great.
I love them
They're
so much.
great parents. Yeah, that's so lovely.
Mom and dad, if you ever see this, hi and thank you.
That's fun. Was yeah, was art in the household?
Um, Honestly, I wouldn't say the art was in household. I was born in Russia in 90s. It was a pretty difficult time, I would say. Um, Pretty unstable, and my family just tried to survive basically. So, but the thing is, I was always immersed into art. From early age, my parents, my family made me go to piano classes, singing classes, the art of speech, um, dancing classes. We were performing with our classmates. We were all over the place, to be honest. We had a lot of performances, and at the early age, I realized I love it. I love art in all forms, and I was given pretty good education, and I was always encouraged to be creative.
Yeah, I think it's a prerequisite to be creative if you're Filipino, to be honest. Yeah. So, the whole family was really great in the music, singing, especially playing any sort of instruments. Have Me and my siblings have like played a ton of just different instruments and dabbled in it, piano, guitar, drums, anything that honestly makes a sound. We're like, let's go try it because why not? I think I always tell people too that we were also very bored when we were kids. And so there's just so many times where we've just gotten random skills where it's painting, and then maybe that gets into us doing that at school. At one point, I learned how to beatbox one summer just because I wanted to. I can't do that anymore. It was a time before. And then I did a lot of musical theater too growing up. Did a lot of dancing to the point that I almost became a professional dancer, but that's a long story of burnout because I was also around the time that I was doing the pre-med track. So while art was in the household, art was also never really seen as a career as like in many households really. Like it's not very well known to know somebody that is a full-time artist of some kind. So I think when I decided to go through a non-traditional path, I expected there to be some pushback, but luckily there was a lot of like love and support in it. It was a lot of I support you, but I don't really know what to do to help, but I'll be here, and that's honestly all you need at the end of the day. It's just that words of encouragement, and then you get that support from the community.
That was a saying my dad used to have, that I'm trying to apply to everything. Like he did it at work was like, I don't know how to help you, but I'll go find someone who knows, or I'll go find out and get back to you. So like even with like the architect thing, I was like, hey, I think I want to go into architecture, and dad was like, okay, I don't know how to help you with that, but I do know somebody I have worked with. Let me get, let me see if we can make a connect.
Yes.
Yeah.
No, it's so important. Any career, any life process that you're going through, like to have support. Like I not me, but like yeah, it's not a no. It's a yes and to the situation. Um, I'm really curious as far as like in all of your old fields as a painter, like there are moments where you can play with the canvas, you can play with artwork, you can invite your inner child to like have a conversation with them, kind of not as a schizophrenic, just as a creative. Um, but is there, how do you play in your artwork? What do you do to invite your inner child to come hang out?
I think for mine, my inner child is always with me.
Oh yeah.
It they show up in many different ways. Sometimes they're a voice of reason. So I had a residency a couple years ago, and again, I'm a planner. So having a plan and then being in the middle of it, and I may share a little later, but like I have this constant question about is this really worth doing? Is this the right thing I need to be spending my time? Is this even a good idea to do? Even after I've already made the decision, or is this as good as I envisioned? And at some point, like my inner child's like, Jay, did you do the thing? Like, yeah, okay, cool. Did you not do the thing? No. Go do the thing. Let's figure that out. Let's see if it was a good idea after. And that helped keep me going. Like I remember I was doing a portrait and I was like, I don't know if there's enough detail in the hand. And I was freaking out about it. And your voice was like, Jay, does it look like a hand? Yeah. Okay, then keep going. You have like 3 hours to finish this thing. And so like there's a podcast I used to watch. I don't know if y'all are familiar with. It's called The Future, and there's a guy named Chris Dillon. Yeah. So they did a couple of episodes really about therapists. It's a podcast for graphic designers. Yeah, and also how to get clients. Um, but he did a lot of episodes where he would bring on therapists, and a lot of it was talking more about like self-esteem, addressing imposter syndrome, and one of the conversations I remember was like, one of the therapists was like, don't, you don't have to kill your inner child. Oftentimes that is play, and there's just like, there are times where you say, hey, I got to handle this. But no, you don't try to, because there's a Greek saying about like going through the kill the child and come out like,
Oh.
and a lot of therapists are like, no, you can go in as a child and leave as the child that acts like a man at times. That's okay. That's
Nice.
really okay.
You should rewrite that, not to like miss the Greeks, but that I think that should be rewritten.
That's a
I
little
second
intense.
that.
That's intense.
I definitely second that.
Intense. Yeah. Yeah. I get it, but that's intense.
Yeah, very.
Yeah.
Dramatic.
Yeah. So yeah, Oksana, how do you invite your inner child to come and play?
That's really interesting that you mentioned therapy, love, psychology, and all this stuff. So my inner child is always with me also, like you said, and there's so much to say. How do I put this in words? Let me look at my notes. Because when I heard you, my brain went all over the place. You know, I want to see that.
Well, if
Oh yeah, that's what I know. So, my inner child is always with me, and it helps me so much to just access this kind of little secure area in my brain, in my mind. Do you know this feeling when you were a kid and it's this really stereotypical like Christmas morning or stuff like that, and your emotions are so intense and they're so positive, and you anticipate so much just for the day, not for the life, but just for the day. And this is so amazing. This is what happens to me when I'm doing photography. It feels like it's kind of taking me back, and it almost feels like I have a flashback in my mind. It's like a spark, and whenever I'm doing any photo shoot, basically, it just connects me with the person in the deepest way. I think. So I can see them through the lens, and I'm feeling. I just feel lucky that I get to capture these emotions, this spark. Um,
I
so
feel
yes.
as I feel a similar way when I collaborate with folks, like with other artists or even my clients when they do brand design work or I used to do wedding photography, and so like I'm photographing or just general photography, like I'm photographing my own slaves and just kind of going back and forth with mom about ideas. We had a really cool session talking about like okay who to shoot, how to organize that. Okay, great, that feels good. I have a plan. We're not just shooting off the fly. But that same emotional joy, I get that just when there's other people to bounce ideas with. I feel like I'm not just winging it and trying to figure it out, which I think a lot of the anxiety comes from. Yeah.
Going back to therapy and psychology again, it's not just that in my head, like my inner child and inner dialogue that I have in my head. It can be really negative, so negative. It's just that's why I like psychology. It's like I heard this phrase in one of the songs. Mm, it says we are mechanisms with no instruction, and I feel like psychology can be instructions. You just read instructions to your brain. That's I think that it helped me balance uh, my the spark, the creative side, and my anxiety. Keeps it together.
Yeah, speaking of therapy, I actually had a session with my therapist, and she asked me if I had hobbies, and I said, "What do you mean?"
Yeah,
It's photography, and
yeah.
she's
As
like,
an
"That's your
artist,
job."
yeah, as an artist, that's like,
Yeah, and then she's like, "That's not a hobby, Kareem. That's your work." And I'm like, "But I like it." And I'm like, "Yeah, but what do you do outside?" And I'm like, "I cook." And she's just like, "That's you still, you still are not understanding the question." And so I think we were having, I was literally like, we were trying to fight at that point in that session because I was like, I'm answering this question, but we didn't fight. And I realized, okay, this is just telling me that I need some hobbies where I can make art and it's not necessarily for a client, it's not for anybody else. It is solely for me, and it's to the point that like I don't even like post about it or show anybody it too. Um, and then y'all understand this, like we as artists, especially when we're in the working field of it, like we gotta post our work on socials and share it and like let people know. But I think what's helped me reconnect with the inner child in me and therefore also help me with just the anxieties of the world is to literally do hobbies that like have no sort of monetary gain, like it has no sort of like social gain from it too. Like I'm not gonna be like, oh my God, guys, look at this thing that I made. Like it's I literally have this notebook of just drawings and work, like writings and stuff, and I just don't show anybody. And nobody's gonna look at it except me. And I think that was kind of the hobby I ended up actually having because it is actually truly separate from the work that I do. And then that way it's not tainted by any stresses of like capitalism, stresses of having to figure out, will people give me a good review at the end of the day? Whether that is officially on Google or just them being like, I like your work or I don't like your work. So when I actually did establish those hobbies, I think that inner child in me was finally like back to that stage when I was actually excited to explore and excited to fail and excited to make really bad art because some of those writings and drawings are ugly.
Well, to your point, right? Like some things, it's strictly for you. I feel like a lot of artists, at least artists that I think are making work that are impactful, it's always tied to the personal. Like they didn't do it just to make a lot more, maybe, but ideally it came from something personal. Like my friend Stephanie Ely, she's a photographer in Atlanta, but she does these beautiful cyanotypes, trying to depict the realities that people with really bad eyesight experience, or who are visually impaired experience. Oh, I'll tell you more about her later. But like that came from her experience having astigmatism. She knew a lot of people who are like in worse conditions. I bought a piece from her. It was a depiction of this lady, and she had a bad eyesight from a heart condition. Unfortunately, she passed during the pandemic, but it gave me a glimpse of what she sees and these beautiful, very abstract. You can barely see her face, and in Braille, which is ingrained in the surface of the photo that you can touch, it tells how she described people. It's very poetic. And so it's just like, I don't know any artist that's doing empathy like that for that community specifically. But that came from a very personal experience for her.
I love it that they interacted the tactile of like this is the story. Like
Yeah,
you can read it this way.
yeah.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
think I think making art for yourself, because I remember one of my mentors in undergrad who was like, if you don't have empathy, you better not be a designer. You need empathy. And not just feelings, but like being able to understand the experience people are having, in order for you to be mindful enough to make something that actually serves them. Because if you're not giving that regard, whatever you're doing probably being effective.
So yeah, maybe working with your clients, like how are you gonna understand them unless you don't have them?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like if they tell you they don't like red for a specific reason, and you put out like different colored red logos, that's probably the problem.
There you go. Yeah. There you go. I'm gonna go like a pinch off script if that's okay. Excellent. How does when you work with clients, like how does empathy show up? Like specifically the red example, like are there any other like photo shoots or other times you were working with a client and was like, hey, you know what, I need to make sure that I'm more mindful about this. Yeah.
So right off the bat, I always tell people that my business is BIPOC and LGBTQ plus inclusive. Um, yeah, woo! Especially the LGBTQ plus inclusive part. I actually just recently got certified as a LGBTQ business enterprise. So
Congratulations.
yeah, it was a very interesting process, but I can tell you all that later. But I think being like that off the bat, letting people know that like I am absolutely there for anybody of whatever identity. Because I think people also forget when it comes to art, especially photography, it is a very, very personal experience to be in front of the camera. Like you feel like that person sees all the way down to like the pores on your skin, like they see everything. And so if I want to have the best image portrayed in the photo and that feels authentic to them, I need to know who they are all throughout themselves. And I think we are constantly told that like we shouldn't say like what our identities are or be like super big and proud for it. But that's just such a big part of somebody's like human existence. And even if it's like a business client or a brand client, similar to art, a lot of their own human experiences trickle into the business that they work in. So if I do not tell them like, hey, I am totally down for whatever identity that you are, like you are included here. And I also make sure I meet every single person before I even photograph them. Like it is a conversation for at least 30 minutes to an hour because I'm not about to just show up to a shoot with a stranger and be like, all right, now I'm gonna want you to be in the most vulnerable situation, which is having a picture taken. So if I have it where my messaging is clear that, hey, you are included and you're welcome, and then I have that conversation to know them, who they are in their personal experience and what they want out of the shoot, it makes the whole experience just better overall and then also has a good end product because they end up actually liking the photos and how they turn out because they're like, okay, that feels like me. It doesn't feel like a curated LinkedIn version of me.
Oh, I talk a lot. To piggyback off of that, right? Like, and I brought up the Reddit example because I was thinking of a client specifically. They're a nonprofit here that helps people with HIV get housing without discrimination, or at least access to affordable housing, as well as like educate on HIV for prevention. And I think they had like, other services too. And I remember the executive director was like, please do not use red. It's overused. It reminds people of death. It reminds people of all the things not great with the pandemic. Like, we just anything but. So I started looking at other like HIV organizations, and funny enough, there were a few that just don't have red in it. Like Visual AIDS is a nonprofit in New York that uses art as a platform to educate against HIV because HIV isn't over. And there's another one out in San Fran. They use a lot of yellow. And so it's kind of cool to see other examples and kind of get out of my head. Because, yeah, I think red is used a lot for HIV, heart disease. Pink is just a lighter, a funner version of red. So, like for cancers. But it's kind of cool looking to see who is kind of going out there for the reference. And then just, okay, what are they doing? What can I use? And what's my remix to it? And that kind of actually helps with the creative process because I don't really have writer's block. In fact, I have too many ideas. I'm just like, okay, what actually is close to the assignment that we're trying to solve? Like, is this understanding the assignment? Yes. Okay, let's try it. Yeah.
I can say, and I like saying that your therapist would approve your photo shoot with me. This is
Nice.
like it became my go-to phrase.
Nice.
I kind of want to be a therapist for my clients in a way. Like Corinne said, it's really personal experience to being photographed, and I'm honestly, I've just recently understood how scary it can be. So you're a client, you're sitting there, there's light in your face, light in your face. You probably don't even see the person like who's behind this light is blinding. So I kind of understand. I mean, I understand a lot because I had experience as a model too, just posing for different photographers who needed practice. Yeah, I never say no to that. And mm, I also have step-by-step process, like having a video call with my client and asking them what ideas they want to express. And it's a dialogue. And what did I want to say? My
Creative, not
it's all
ADHD.
over the place. Yeah, and I use a lot of empathy in my process. Let's say I always show pictures to my clients because
Mhm.
at some point I'm looking at them and I see that they're like kind of stiff, and I feel like okay, you look great. Let me reassure you. So I'm showing them the pictures, and they look at themselves and they probably get a little bit out of their head, not like before, because in your head you might think, oh, I look ugly or I don't look good, I look stiff. It's not true. So I let them know that it's all right. They can be themselves here and they look great. And I'll make sure they look great. And lots of clients told me that they felt empowered and they really enjoyed, they liked the pictures, the way they turned out. And even like random people, just people told me that my subjects look relaxed and happy. And I'm really happy that it is. It's like that. I'm really glad.
There's one more thing I wanted to add too, right? Like with with clients specifically, because they'll come to me for a logo or a brand identity system. And so it's like, okay, that's cool. But first of all, let's talk about the soul of your company. Like, what is your values? How do those feed your vision? How do you go about your mission to fulfill your vision, which are aligned with your values? And so, like, and I'm of the opinion that everything really is personal. We could say it's business, but it's affecting a person. It's
Yeah.
personal. And so taking it personally in the sense of like getting to know you as a person or know your business as if it was a person, that also helps me build the empathy to think, okay, that helps me filter X number of ideas and focus on maybe these 10. So I also use that in my like because to me design is also curation. You're curating different type, different colors, different images to a remix that says something that aligns with what you or your client are trying to do.
There's this book called Essentialism by Greg something. Really, really good, but in it he talks specifically about editing. And I think as a curator, as artists, like it's so important to like have your chaos, have your inner child come out and play, and then be like, okay, like what can I take out? Um, no, yeah. Thank you for bringing up that curation part again, bringing it back into it. Um, so I do have the last two questions for this panel. Are there any pro tips you could offer any artist seeking a career? Is there any kind of advice or quotes you can give out as far as like in order to avoid burnout, but also like make sure that you're still doing like your creativity? A favorite example is if you want to be the noun, you have to do the verb,
Mm.
right?
Mm. Yeah.
I mean, that's an awesome one. Like, no pressure.
I think mine is almost as short. Just do the work. Like, believe you can do it, and then go do it,
Yeah.
and worry about the critique after. Like, seriously, like when I was doing transparency to advocate for the trans community, there was a lot of questions that I had for myself, along with questions that others asked. And so every day I asked myself, why am I doing this? And like I realized the answer was consistent. At the time, it was just I don't like bullies, and I don't know other than donating and protesting how to help.
Mm.
So I was hoping maybe platforming through art could be something. So that was the focus. And I believe I could do it. I curated exhibitions before. It was like I believe I can do it. It's something I want to do the thing, and then take notes. And I'm still taking this year to kind of process that because there was a lot of room for growth, but there was a lot of like wins and really beautiful moments that project came to be, and it's giving me ideas on how to further advocate through my work as a curator and through the arts in general matters that matter to me.
Mm.
Yeah, so just believe you can do it. Also ask for help,
Oh.
but ultimately just do the thing and learn.
Yeah, I think mine would be business really isn't that boring. We just make it so because it's very interesting. The more I've actually dived deeper into the business side of doing creative work, it's not only helped me continue to do this work, luckily, like full time, which is like an immense blessing, but like I look forward to like bookkeeping. I was like, who the heck am I to be somebody that's like wanting to do a spreadsheet? But I made my spreadsheet where it's like super colorful. It has like cute little notes and pictures. Like it doesn't have to be like a boring like black and white, just boxes, just sales doesn't have to be boring, marketing isn't boring. Like I love doing social stuff because you're creating videos, and it's like art inception because it's like a video of your art, so it's fun. And I think if we just have that perspective shift that like business isn't all so serious. If anything, I am so unserious when it comes to business. Like I cannot tell you how many video calls I'm with clients, and they're so surprised that I am just a potty mouth. Like I'm just sailor, like ba 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 ba. And then I'm telling them, I'm like, well, this is the kind of clients I want to work with. I want to work with people that I feel like I'm friends with, and I'm not, a very I don't know why my shoulders are like this, but I'm not like an uptight like
Yeah,
Regency era
I'm being
lady.
polite, but I cuss like a sailor.
Yeah, this is the most polite I've ever been right now.
This is really hard, right?
It's really hard.
This is really difficult.
Yes.
Really
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Now this whole building knows it's very difficult for me. Yes.
Shout outs to the photographer. He feels our pain.
But yeah, Oksana, any like pro tips or anything that you could offer for artists seeking a career?
Yeah, I'm doing watercolor just as a hobby, just for myself, for my soul. Yeah, and I've recently like made a little watercolor picture with like funny pictures around it, and it says, "Stop carrying your old experiences into your new life, into a new experience." And I just
But yeah,
I think I
Oksana,
just
any
started
like pro
realizing
tips
how
or
important it is.
anything that you
Because
could
I'm always
offer
in my head,
for artists
and I'm thinking
seeking
it's
a
always
career?
gonna stay the
Yeah,
same, but it's not. I'm doing
changing.
watercolor.
Just
If
as
you
a
just get
hobby,
out of
just
your
for
head,
myself.
let yourself
So
be. Yeah,
Let yourself
and I've
grow.
recently
Let yourself
made a
change.
little watercolor picture, and it helped me with imposter
and it
syndrome.
says,
It helped me with anxiety.
stop carrying your
Just
old experiences into your new life.
If it's
And
with
I
different
just
people, it's a
But yeah,
different
Oksana,
opportunity.
any like pro tips or anything that you
And
could
speaking
offer
of too,
for
like I
artists
think a lot of
seeking
people
a
get
career?
scared to even
yeah,
like let into career paths
I'm
and try
doing
to figure out
watercolor.
like what
If
to
you
do
just get
better
out
in the
of your
future.
head, let yourself
Back to the
be.
business end of stuff.
Yeah,
So I run a
I
creative business
recently
podcast
made
too,
a little
and we like do a
watercolor
lot of like
picture,
advice and
and it
just
helped me
talking to
with
people
imposter
about it.
syndrome.
So it's really fun. I
Stop
like talking
carrying
about
your
business
old
stuff.
experiences
Oh, it's called Eat Like an Artist, and that's his podcast.
I
But
But yeah,
basically,
Oksana, any like pro tips
Oh my God, yes. We could talk about that later. But when it comes to business too, like in the past, I remember I was so nervous about looking into like my financial part. Like a lot of people think that I'd need to go about a credit card or checking or what I'm paying for because it's scary to like look at money because we live in a world where they don't give you tax education, they don't give you finance education, like all the financial education stuff. But there's so many resources that are out there that we can tap into. But I think the first hurdle we have to get over is that like it's okay for us to like look at how money is spent. A lot of people think that just because if we're thinking to somebody that wants to go fundraising or the only way to know like money on a more concrete advice is like you never really want to do it. You just want to do finance. But if you kind of need that all you gotta know what you're doing. So that's the biggest part. You gotta know what you're doing. And I am also so I run a like a lot of because
is maybe go to CPCC for a design, like for an associates for design and whatnot, or at least get my gen eds out the way, save way more money, and then go to college for my specifics. And like, because community college is like dirt cheap, but the quality's really good.
Agreed.
And you get access to networks that are just as good as universities, if not better in some cases. Yeah, so that's brilliant. Like you can apply that to anything, not just business, school, anything. Because like that was, I had no idea how to assess my probability or the risk management of like taking on student
Yeah.
loans. That was a bad
And I
idea.
think the only way you can like kind of analyze that is if you know your numbers at the end of the day. And it's arduous. It took me a very long time to figure out what my personal expenses were and business expenses. I mean, I said, business doesn't have to be boring, but I'm gonna be honest, that part's kind of boring.
Fair.
Going through bank statements, being like, okay, like how often do I spend on this thing? It's a lot, but I think if you keep that motivation up to be like, okay, but this is gonna help me towards making sure that I can sustain my life as I personally am and my creative life as well. But also too, when it comes to boring stuff, I just reward myself with ice cream, and that does it really.
It's a great reward. No, it's a great
Good
reward.
reward.
Yeah. But on that, as far as like rewarding ourselves, are there any other shameless plugins, like any other projects you're working on or exhibitions that we shall be on the lookout for?
Yeah. So I'm actually in a mentorship with the Light Factory right now. Details are still TBD, but I will have my first solo exhibition next year. So, ah, I'm I'm effing nervous. I don't know if I could say anything.
All right, you're good.
So there's that. I also have the podcast Eat Like an Artist. It is on all podcast platforms, Spotify, Apple, you name it. Just look up Eat Like an Artist, and you'll see my face like this on the cover. And yeah, we just talk about mindful creative entrepreneurship. We have actually Shalise has an episode on there too. You should also listen to it. It's great. There's actually a good amount of people in the Vapa Center that's in it as well. But yeah, so we go mindset. We talk about people's like past experiences. They are just like telling you what to do, what not to do. And we also have some of my therapist friends that are on there too, which is really nice to have some therapists be like, hey, it's okay, you're doing good, especially because they have a way of speaking that just is so comforting. Outside of that, I am free. I'm available for hire
There you
for creative portraits, personal branding, and events. So I have a card. So get me later.
go. Oksana. Oh,
All right. So, yeah, you can find me on JTR Presents, JTR Jordan T. Robinson Presents.
your
It
website is gorgeous.
Thank you.
Oh my God.
I'm about to rebrand it.
Oh,
It's a
Yeah.
contemporary art museum that it's a contemporary art museum that offers design and marketing services for startup businesses. And then the funds for that help fund exhibitions we do to support community. That's how we could partially fund
Okay.
transparency.
Got it.
So there's that, and also you can find me on my government name on Instagram. That is also easy to find on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn. Yeah, just my government name, and
Okay.
then that plus presents.
Nice.
Well, I can't say you'll have any special. No, I shouldn't say that. I will have special projects. I'm still shaping them in my mind. I'm pretty sure I'll do a lot of photo days. I have such great plans in my head. I just don't know how to shape them. I need a plan.
I'm here anytime.
I need a plan. I'll do a lot of branding photo shoots and creative portrait photo shoots.
Perfect.
I have so many ideas. So you can find me on Instagram. I'll rebrand my website. Corinne gave me so many good ideas on how to do my website better. So yeah, I'll be on Instagram, Facebook, on my website. Find me there.
I also forgot to mention, details are TBD, but next year I'm doing a collaborative exhibition with three friends called Presence. The idea of showcasing, platforming, emerging, and recently formed contemporary artists.
Yeah.
The idea is like to boost that visibility, and it was inspired by like our conversations about some of the glass ceilings and invisible barriers that folks of many identities go through. And so, looking at like how do you address that? Just even putting on a show for that is potentially a way to get past it. Just make space and let people be in there and show themselves.
That's perfect. Yeah. Well, I will definitely politely be stalking all of you to get the TBD.
Likewise.
Yay. Thank you all again so much for coming out for our monthly Open Studios and Artists Talks. We will not be having this on the first Saturday of July. Come back and see us, please and thank you, for August 3rd. The Artist Talks will include Juan Roland, Sasha Banks, and Mary Tuma. Thank you again so much all for your time. Thank you to our artists. Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, my pleasure. Cheers, y'all.
Return the